And our third panel is called Plant-Based Medicine, a Global Investing Opportunity. The moderator of that is John Niemanek. And John will be introducing our two panelists today, who are also both have doctorate degrees as well too. I am personally honored and privileged because John is someone I look up to, who I learn something new from every single time he does something. John is a partner of Green Coast Capital International. Green Coast is an international investor providing flexible, innovative financing to small cap and micro cap marketplace in a variety of sectors. John might actually be in Colombia right now. I don't know. I'll let him talk about that himself. But let's talk about John a little bit more. John's a serial entrepreneur, but he's also an investor. He's a co-founder, chairman, and CEO. He's exited not one, not two, but three companies, very successful internet startups. In 2006, he took Hostopia, raised $29.2 million for it, then sold it to Deluxe Communications for $129 million. Think about that. He raised 30 million, sold it for 124 million. That's a pretty good turnaround. Great job, John. He also sold another company to the Steinmetz Group for $45 million in the latter part of 1999. His current company, Tucos, had a current market cap of over 600 million. He also took Internet Direct and merged it with another company called Look Communications in 1999. And guess what? That was deemed at over $500 million with a B. Over $500 million. I'll tell everyone right now, and I'm going off script on purpose, is that most people can get their company to a 75 or $100 million valuation. But once you hit over 500 million, that's a lot. That's difficult. It's not easy to do. And this guy has done it. So once again, make sure you pay attention to John. John's current interest, though, is about medical cannabis, cultivation, hemp, CBD startups with a focus on Colombia. He's married to Sandra Carrillo, who's a physician and also a leading expert in cannabis for clinical applications. And she was also appointed the clinical professor in charge of scientific program for cannabis research and education at the University of Panama. John manages Panamanian and Colombian-based businesses. He's a former member of EO Panama and has extensive contacts within Panama. He's also a former member of EO Toronto as well as YPO Toronto. He is actively seeking high return opportunities to invest in, as well as to serve as a director for high quality cannabis oriented firms. So I tell people, if you're looking for a highly experienced operator, a dynamic leader who understands the growth cycles of startups and how to develop exit strategies, make sure you contact John. And if you know from John's background, his stuff in America, South America, Canada, he's a wealth of knowledge. John, I'm going to hand it off to you to let you talk about who we have as panelists and to get this panelist started.
David, thank you. That was an amazing introduction. I really appreciate that. Sometimes when I look back over the years and realize that some of the things that I did, it was because we had a team. There's no I in team. I worked with an absolutely outstanding group of entrepreneurs, executives, friends. I mean, this is critical, and this is the emphasis I always put on when I'm looking at investments. So I'm going to proceed now by chatting about Nova Plantum, which is actually Latin for new plant. And I'm going to introduce Dr. Sudhir Athni. Please, gentlemen, forgive me if I butchered the names, I try. And Dr. Prahlad Parahuli of Nova Plantum. Gentlemen, welcome to the Investor Hot Seat.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, I read through your resumes online, and for me to try to summarize your resumes in, say, less than 30 seconds would be like trying to summarize War and Peace by calling it a book about Russia. I mean, gentlemen, you have absolutely outstanding bios. So what I'm going to do is ask, and Dr. Athni, may I call you Sudhir? May I call
Absolutely.
you that?
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about Nova Plantum. And then afterwards, I'm going to ask you to tell me a little bit about yourself, if you wouldn't mind, please. And then ask your other partners as well. Because honestly, I looked at your bios and I thought to myself, like, wow, if I was ever going to put together a dream team, you guys would be at the core of it. I mean, no kidding. So please proceed.
Sure, sure. And let me answer that by flipping around just a little bit because I think my history and where I came from will explain how we got Nova Plantum together.
Please.
So I'm a big city boy. I grew up in New York actually, and
Okay.
went down to Houston for my education. And down there, I got my environmental engineering degree. So that was my first taste in the environment, the green world, and all that kind of stuff. And then life took me over to medicine, where I got my MD, and then became a neurologist. So right now, I'm a practicing neurologist here in Middle Georgia. And I've always had this interest in plants and trees. And I jokingly tell my friends that I love shooting animals, but not with a gun, but with a camera. So I'm big into photography and the outdoors and stuff. And I've always been amazed how a lot of my patients, you know, almost blindly, they accept some of the medications I prescribe them for their ailments. And a lot of these medications have you know, some toxic effects, and these are serious conditions. And that's where over the years and just through self-learning and broadening my educational horizons, I realized that there are so many plants out there that can actually do the same. Not just the pharma-based chemicals that are produced that we dispense to our patients, but there are so many drugs out there that can do the exact same thing. And that's where, with my partner Prahlad and our two other partners, Dr. Nirmal Joshi and Dr. Braz Vaidya, we all have different interests, and we got together about 6-7 years ago and realized that, hey, we can form a company that can achieve this goal of producing products naturally, not just from chemicals. And we all had our individual skill set. And so that's how Nova Plantum was formed. So I'll hand it off to Prahlad and let him explain what his skill set is, what he brought to the table of this company.
Please.
Everybody, yeah, thanks for tuning in. And thanks, John, for introducing us here. I, Sudhir and I are from different worlds. So I am from originally from India, from the Himalayas. I grew up in a small plantation, medicinal plantation, and before chloroquine was there, the quinine is the mother of chloroquine, and that comes from a plant, cinchona. Cinchona was grown actually in one of the 4 plantations that I grew up in. So I strongly believe in the healing power of herbs, plants. So because that's where I spent my formative years of childhood. And but then as a training, I studied immunology. I'm a PhD in immunology. And right now I do research and teach cancer biology and immunology at Wayne State University, Karmanos Cancer Institute. I'm in Michigan right now. So, and with Dr. Joshi, who is one of our partners, we've been studying different immunomodulatory aspects, anti-cancer, anti-obesity, of different literally hundreds of medicinal plants. We've done research on them. And when doing research, we realized that a lot of these plants, we have off the counter extracts and all those things you can buy. But a lot of times they don't work as good as they are supposed to work. The reason is the plants actually, where do they bring it from? What kind of chemicals do they have? Although you get plants, it's not necessary that they have the chemicals that they are supposed to have. So that brought us to tissue culture, basically. So if you want to grow plants which have consistent composition of chemicals in them, you have to have the same genetics, just like hemp or any other thing. So, and the only way to produce them is by tissue culture. You multiply them, and then you have to grow in a specific condition. So that's what we got together, 4 of us. We have partners, Dr. Joshi, who is world-renowned professor in all kinds of plants. He knows about all kinds of exotic plants in the Himalayas and all over the world. And we have another person who is the only person who doesn't have a doctoral degree. He has a master's degree, but he is the master of tissue culture, basically. And he has done tissue culture business all over the world, in Kathmandu, Trinidad, Tobago, and from here also. So he knows tissue culture from all over the world, and he has done business. And Sudhir, who knows engineering, MBA, and medicine. And me being like, I've studied research, done research on like different aspects of medicinal plants. So we got together and we started this company. So that's our background. And
Do you mind telling us just a little bit more about your partners? What you said was good, but just maybe amplify a bit more for another minute or so, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's Claude.
Oh, okay. So
Sure.
Dr. Joshi is the anchor, basically. So he's not here. So he brought all the three of us together. So he's also from the Himalayas. He's from the Western Himalayas. I'm from the Eastern Himalayas. So, and he studied in India, but he went to get his PhD in the Eastern Himalayas. That he went to Japan. He was in Philippines studying rice. So he had studied he's a botanist by training, PhD in botany, a plant scientist. He's studied all kinds of medicinal plants. So he knows about medicinal plants, how to tissue culture them, how to grow them, and how to intercrop actually. So that's another advantage of so us. We do consulting also. We actually teach farmers and growers how to mix their plantations basically to get maximum advantage, and how to utilize the plants. So, and we also, Dr. Joshi also specializes in some like very fast growing trees, and with the multiple advantages, biomass and everything. So we consult with growers how to get like maximum advantage of those trees. So he's an expertise in all kinds of trees and medicinal plants. And another partner is Bras Vaidya, and he actually, the opposite of what we did is we studied outside, we came here. Bras Vaidya actually got his undergrad from here, so in US. And he got his undergrad and he went back to Kathmandu, Nepal, started a tissue culture company. And he is a master in tissue culture because he used to tissue culture exotic Himalayan plants, including orchid, which is very difficult to tissue culture actually. So, and he used to sell them all over the world. And he did tissue culture in bananas and all kinds of plants. And he went to Trinidad and Tobago, helped them set up like tissue culture companies there. And he came back here, got his master's again. And then he started we started a company. We met when he was doing his master's here in US. So we got him into our fold. So we built this team like that, tissue culture company basically. So we have the know-how of doing tissue culture for more than 200 plants, including hemp, orchids, and trees, and multiple medicinal plants.
As I said, all of you have absolutely outstanding backgrounds. And one of the things I noticed about your company is that even though you positioned yourself as providing tissue culture, and I think we should explain a little bit more why tissue culture is perhaps superior to cloning or to popping seeds. I mean, seeds are easy. You know, a couple of years ago, we bought some seeds from someone we will not name, but a very well-known seed producer. It was supposed to be AK-47. We got 12 seeds. We popped the seeds, and what was it? 4 of them exhibited a sativa-like characteristics. 4 of them reminded us of indica. I had the broad leaves, and then 4 of them were like hybrids. And needless to say, from a commercial operations perspective, you just cannot have that kind of variability. You know, you need to have consistency. So a lot of people have turned to clones. However, I personally believe tissue culture is superior, but as experts, perhaps you could explain to the audience why tissue culture is better. And let's emphasize that what you offer is technology. You're not limited to cannabis by any means. I mean, there isn't literally any plant that you can't take your technological platform, as I understand it, and apply it. So for me, that's particularly interesting because as an investor, looking at charts of commodities, in particular, I was looking at the DBA Investec Index. It's a TETF. And in the last 10 years, it's been going down. It's primarily agricultural commodities, but in the last 10 years, it's been declining, but now it's popping up, which is telling me that we're going into an agricultural boom in terms of prices for the cost of food and other agricultural goods. And what you're doing is going to be critical, in my opinion, to help keeping us fed, to feeding the planet. So please, forgive me if I'm just going on and on in my soapbox here, but tell us, favor us please with a response. Tell us why tissue culture over cloning, for example.
Sure. Let me jump in on this one. So normally, any plant that most folks know about, non-scientific, you take a seed, you put it down in the ground, and you watch the plant grow. And then to multiply it, you basically take the seeds those plants produce, and you plant more plants from those seeds. The problem there is a fewfold. One, mutations occur. So every generation of these plants, there's a slight change in the genetic code. And when you take those seeds and replant it, now the genetic code is slightly different than the original mother plant. Then another issue with that is the sun and the rain and cross-pollination with other plants that are similar in the local area. So now you bastardize that plant generation after generation. And you need to plant those out in the field. You need acres and acres and acres to multiply thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of plants. Tissue culture is completely in the lab. In a facility that's maybe 5,000 square feet, we could multiply millions in a very small area. And the technology basically involves taking one plant, and then in the lab, we genetically multiply it. We don't genetically modify it, we genetically multiply it. So the original mother plant is now multiplied millions of times over, and in a small facility, and we can stack them up rows on top of rows. And so from a world hunger standpoint, sure, we can multiply any plant, any food that people want to eat, multiply it in mass quantities. Now, once it's multiplied, that doesn't mean it's ready to eat, obviously, if it's a food, or doesn't mean it's ready to harvest and make it into cannabis. Now these are seedlings, little plantlets that can then be taken to the field and planted. But you can be rest assured that every one of those plants that you planted has the exact same genetic code as the original mother plant. So from a cannabis standpoint, where this becomes crazy important, especially as cannabis and hemp, and in the future marijuana becomes legalized, is the flavor and the variety. So one example I give to my patients and to my colleagues is, there's only one species of humans, right? There's the genus species, and that's Homo sapiens. Every one of us is a Homo sapien. It's one species. With cannabis, there are 3 species, but like humans, we have billions of varieties. I look totally different than everyone else on the screen and everyone else in the world because I'm one variety. Same with cannabis, you have thousands and thousands of varieties. And each variety of cannabis may have a slightly different flavor when it's used recreationally, but will also have a slightly different content in terms of its chemicals, the phytochemicals, the plant chemicals, which is important for medicinal plant usage. So it's critical that once we find a given plant, a given cannabis that has a given phytochemical calibration, that we multiply genetically. And the only way that can be done genetically multiplication is through tissue culture. Is that anything to add, Prahlad, on that front?
That's an excellent explanation. Now, I'm going to need to wrap this up soon, but I did want to say that first of all, we've had an amazing turnout of people, by the way, and it just shows that what Brad is doing here is great. What I would like you to do is this: what message would you like to give to the audience in terms of what your opportunity is and how they can reach out to you? Because I personally really like what you're doing. I mean, I think it's astounding, but I'm sure there's people in this audience right now that are wondering more about what it is that you offer. If not, in particular, what I really liked was what you're doing on the cannabis side. But again, I want to emphasize it's a technology platform. I describe your company as being the blockchain or distributed ledger technology, right? And cannabis is simply an application like a Bitcoin, for example. So that's how I see it. So I will now quiet up and ask you to summarize, please. And
Sure.
whatever
Claude, you wanna
message you would
start?
like to leave.
Yeah. Claude, do you want to start?
So we have already formed a group. We are already consulting. And right now, when we are talking to different groups in like all over the world, actually, who wants to buy different kinds of plants, tissue culture. The tree especially, it's people are interested in one kind of tree, and we are getting orders, so we are having to outsource them. So which we do not want to. So that's why we purchased the land. We've already like 120 acres of land in the middle Georgia, here in US, the Georgia in US, and where we are ready to start. But we want to start with a tissue culture lab, and we want to build a big greenhouse where we can grow different kinds of medicinal plants there, because they have to grow in a consistent condition. So, and in the lab, we can produce any kind of plant. So we are ready to roll. We have a land. We need a runway. So we are like to fly. We want to fly big, and we need a runway. We are seeking funding to build a runway to that, which is our lab, tissue culture lab. So,
And I want to add that we are also investors in our own company. All four of us are investor owners of the company. And like Prahlad said, our land is in central Georgia, and we're right. And we bought that land in a place that's strategic to transport. We're 3 miles away from an airport, 75 miles from an international airport, 3 miles from a interstate highway, 15 miles from the railroad system, and 100 miles from the seaway, Savannah Airport, the port. And so we can transport to anywhere in the world. And with tissue culture, we're not limited to the US, because we don't do tissue culture in soil. We do it in media, and which means we can transport anywhere in the world. We currently have active accounts in Morocco, in Dublin, in India, and we're trying to establish some accounts in Brazil, as well as Chile. So we're an active business, money generating business, and we're trying to grow to the next level. And that's what we're trying to see.
Excellent, excellent, gentlemen. You've done an absolutely outstanding job. I'm going to ask you in the comments in the chat just to leave your contact information for anybody who wants to reach out to you. And I see that I'm hitting time limit here, so I'm going to be handing off to my wonderful friend, Dr. Dave. I didn't realize he had a second doctorate. I mean, my gosh, just talking with him, I feel my IQ going great.
Appreciate it.
I'm truly humble. So, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you,
John. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day, gentlemen. Thank you.